All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your man of fire himself, Halfpint, once again. It's been too long since I've been able to say that. And welcome back to Messy Bedroom Boy. As you can see here, we're actually in the process of moving, so there's a lot of extra bedroom clutter. Luckily, the new place I'm going to, there's going to be a separation of office from bedroom. So it'll be a lot easier to keep everything organized instead of keeping everything inside of one room. And when you move one thing, everything's a mess. Anyways, I'm excited about that. Regardless, though, we do need to talk about Subverse because we're a little behind on that. So for most of you who have already played the update, that came out like 2 months ago. Yeah, that was a hot minute. It's been a while since that update. I lost kind of interest in YouTube, and I figured now that we're back in the saddle again, instead of trying to catch up with all the content I've missed within one big upload that I'd probably procrastinate quite a bit, I figured we'd do like a rapid succession of some uploads and try to release some stuff. So we'll see if we can do something close to daily uploads to talk about all the stuff that we missed. But first, let's talk about that brand new update that came out. Now, I did in fact have a full review done for this. Like, the whole thing was scripted. I recorded it, but I lost recording during some stuff I was doing with my computer, and B, I just wasn't proud of the way it was presented. I just didn't care anymore. So I figured I just would go through my notes instead and present it in this format. Now, the update itself, it's aight. It was okay. If you like, it's more Subverse is what it is at the end of the day. It's more Subverse, and I think it was good in that regard. There was a lot of points that it hit. You got to understand this is an update for a game that's still in early access, so it was more story oriented, but it does give me some concerns about the future of the project and what they're planning on doing with it, and that's kind of the overarching theme when it comes to the entire thing. Now, I am going to go ahead and list a lot more cons inside of here because there are some concerns I have for the game, but it doesn't mean that the game is really in a bad state. It's just, I've stated most of the pros already in like my original review of the game itself, and I don't want to regurgitate that content. So don't think this is me just like hating on the game or saying this is a bad product, but it's me just going to be listing off a lot of things that I'm seeing as concerns that are going to need to be worked on, you know? I don't want to sugarcoat it. So let's start off with the pros real quick. The story was good. It had me intrigued. I was interested in the story, and I really did like the direction they're going in. I'm already excited for the next part of the story to come out. No doubt about that. The cutscenes were great. I like the way they integrated the missions naturally into the cutscenes as well. There are some fun story missions to do that so raunchy that I literally cannot even upload the playthrough to YouTube anymore. Like, I'm not even worried about uploading to YouTube because I just can't. You're gonna have to go just watch on Picardo because, oh my god, did it get raunchy. The backgrounds, for space combat, absolutely beautiful. There was this one background with like a giant fucking asteroid that was rotating. Really cool, really beautiful. I like that sort of stuff. When it came to some of the side missions, there was one for like the Marine copy pasta, you know, that the one you saw on Xbox chat and little messages like, listen here, maggot, I'm a well-trained Marine and blah, 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 blah. And he's like threatening the kid. They had that as a copy and paste on one of the planet descriptions. I don't know if that was one of the Kickstarter planets. I'm assuming it was. Genius. Absolutely. I salute you, sir, for adding the Marine copy pasta as the description of your planet. You're a badass. You paid for a planet, and that's what you chose for the description. Gotta give some mad credit to that guy. Next, the space breakout mission itself was pretty cool. It's the mission where you had to break Elaisha. I think it was Elaisha. I don't fucking remember. I'm bad with names anyway. Elaisha Sorn. Breaking her out of her prison was a pretty cool mission. I did enjoy doing a little space combat. It was short-lived. It got kind of repetitive as well. So it was fun the first time, though. It was definitely fun the first time, and it was kind of easy as well. All right, so there's the pros, and now it's time to talk about the cons. And there's a pretty chunky list of things on there, but it's for the sake of improving the game, so let's get started. Number one problem with the game. Oh my god, does it get repetitive? Now, after you finish the story mission, you have a lot, and I mean they gave you a lot to do in the Hydra Nebula, which is great. There's all sorts of side missions. Only problem is, they get really boring. I had to literally push myself to finish the rest of the missions before doing the review. And it was not enjoyable just because it felt like I was doing the same thing over and over. And I felt like I was also fighting the same waves of enemies, whether it was space combat or grid combat. It got really repetitive. A lot of the planets also just don't have that much variation. You're just landing on the same thing over and over. It's like, should we expect to see this when landing on planets? Just seeing the same background over and over. There was one point in time we landed on a purple lava planet. Even the description was talking about the purple lava, and when you landed on it, it was another red lava layout. It's like, okay, all right. It kind of goes against literally the description. I'm like, oh, the whole planet's purple. Oh, the description talks about how the whole thing is just made of purple fucking lava. Okay, that's cool. Let's land on it. It's just red lava. Okay, interesting. Also, grid combat also gets stale, but it's more dynamic this time around, more than it was before, but it still gets pretty stale. Now, I don't know necessarily what they're going to need to add in order to make this a bit more dynamic. We know there's going to be some evolutions coming for some of the mantics. I'm definitely looking forward to those. But it feels like just the current layout of things they're doing with it, the way it's just got this linear gameplay to it that just is not interesting. It's nice that they added like explosive barrels, so there's more opportunities to utilize those. But I feel like there needs to be more either neutral game items added to the fold, or maybe you need to like add some items that you can like modifiers, like add some modifiers beforehand, maybe making the battle harder or easier before going to the next battle. That way, not every single grid combat battle feels the same. It's like, not only am I choosing the mantics and the waifu to bring in, but maybe you need to bring in an item as well that could change up the pace and flow of combat, that sort of stuff. One example I like to think about is Inscription. Inscription's a recent indie game that came out, and one of the beautiful things about this game is that it always just feels dynamic and different because there's always new tools and stuff that you're using. Like, it's a pretty simple concept, but it always adds something new with every single battle, right? Granted, there's some RNG that plays into that as well, but there's stuff like certain types of cards that you're using depending on what species it is. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into specifics and explain that game. I'm trying to keep it kind of vague because I know a lot of people probably haven't played that game. But the basis is we need something that changes up the battles for grid combat. Because right now it's just click a planet, land, choose your units, and go. And even the units aren't that different either. I mean, they've got some variation, but it's attack, be attacked, attack. It gets pretty stale. I even suggested ideas of like maybe some maps need like a wall in the middle. So maybe it's like either A, you need to open up the wall and so it changes the pace of combat, so when the battle starts, only ranged units can actually do any damage. Or maybe it says that in the beginning, and so it says, oh, this is a ranged only map, therefore you can only bring ranged characters into this battle. So it's like a challenge almost for that one. So it'd be kind of cool to see some challenges in there. Either way, we need some sort of variation or something more added to it to really change up the flow of grid combat. And I don't think it's just about upgrading the mantics to do more in general. Maybe it's like we need to physically see the people leveling up, because we know we're leveling up mantics and waifus. Maybe we need to physically see those levels up every time we knock out an enemy. Level up, because I mean, it also gets kind of stale just looking at the gameplay as well. It's just a top-down view, and it's not very dynamic. So, anyways, a lot going on there. Space combat is struggling a little bit as well. It's like space combat almost feels like it needs more objects, goals, or incentives. Do we need collectibles? Do we need some enemy-specific hazards? Maybe some friendly-only hazards? Maybe we need to add some other quality of life changes as well. Maybe it's not just about bringing a different waifu for a different weapon, but maybe we can bring a different package for the Phoenix you want to choose. Like, maybe you can bring a cloaking device, or maybe you can bring something that every time you dash, it leaves like a little fiery trail behind your dash as well. Maybe a tractor beam. I don't know. So maybe instead of just bringing a waifu for a different weapon, you can also bring in a different package or a different item for the Phoenix as well to utilize in combat. Maybe make it a consumable. It adds more strategy to the items you use. Or maybe you have to go out and buy them from like the black market instead, so it doesn't have to be a consumable, but you can earn better items as you progress through the game. But something definitely needs to change, because even space combat was getting pretty repetitive and felt very samey. In fact, space combat in this update specifically felt like you were fighting the exact same waves, regardless of the factions you were fighting. It was like a lot of small dudes, 4 medium guys, and then 2 big guys. And it felt like that every single fight. Every single fight. It's like, why is it like you could predict the 2 big guys coming, and then as soon as you slayed them, boom, it was like over for space combat. And it felt like that every single time. So something needs to be a bit different there. And especially if we're going to be adding 3 difficulties per planet, and the planets as they are already are getting this repetitive, I'm a little scared. And that was another thing I kind of wanted to bring up, was like the planets themselves. It's almost to the point where like it doesn't feel like we necessarily need every single planet to have 3 tiers. I almost feel like some planets should be either just a tier 1 planet, maybe a tier 1 and 2 planet, maybe this planet is just a tier 2 and 3. That way we can still include all the planets, but not every planet has to be tier 1 through 3. That way it's not about quantity, but it's about quality. And I think some people would actually be okay with their planets just being a couple of missions if they were good, tailored missions, instead of every single planet feeling the same. Then people would probably be more regretful of their choice of the planet, I guess is the best way of saying that. And speaking more on those 3 difficulties or 3 tiers that we have going on there, a lot of those seem to be taken by events. Events are the most lackluster thing in this game. I don't like them. The jokes hardly land. They feel pointless. You don't get any rewards out of it. Like, it says like you earn 5 credits. What? That's like 5 cents in this game. Like, it doesn't really get you anything at all. So like, I don't know. I have no idea what to even do with events. Because as they are right now, it's like, what's the point of this? Like, it's basically... It's like a dick joke every time, and dick jokes can only go on for so long. One thing I was thinking about how to adjust for these planets is maybe instead of like showing the 3 different tiers on each planet, maybe it'd be a good idea to be able to like because you already have like the 3D models for the planets, right? So what if you could like rotate the planet and you just place these 3 different things, tiers, levels, let's just call them levels, and then you actually just put them on the physical planet itself. That way you're not limited to just 3 per planet, and it would probably feel a bit more dynamic as well, you know, kind of like probing in Mass Effect 2. But it would be a little bit more interesting for the events. Like you find an event here, oh, what's that? And then they click on the event actually on the planet to see what kind of event is that, and then it would probably unfold its story at that point in time. I feel like that would be a bit more interesting. But as it is right now, it's kind of just, it's lackluster, it's repetitive, and it definitely needs some help. And this brings me to my biggest point or problem that I have with Subverse specifically, and that is, why are we doing what we are doing? And this was the main thing I said during my live streams a lot, and this is the main point I wanted to hit home as much as possible when I was writing the script. Why are we doing what we are doing? Because I don't know why. And it's to the story to a certain extent you understand, but when it comes to the side quest, there is no relevant reason for what we're doing at all. We're just doing side missions and attacking and being attacked for just no reason. Like, I don't understand why we go to a planet and then we just initiate space combat. There's no reason for it. Is there someone blocking our loot, so we went into space combat? Did we get attacked when we were investigating the planet? I don't know. There is no explanation for it. Why do we initiate grid combat or space combat in the first place? How do these factions find us and fight us? Would an initializing fight cutscene probably help? At least a little bit of an explanation for these fights. What's a good way to find some reasonability in which why we're attacking? Is there loot that we're specifically going after that's on that planet that we need to acquire? Are we specifically trying to lower the numbers of the army that's inside of this solar system, and so we need to attack them to lower their numbers? You know, would it be better to put like a blockade around a physical ship blockade around a planet so you can see there's going to be ship combat on that one. Oh, we need to get rid of that blockade. And so as you're progressing through this nebula, you're destroying these blockades around these planets. And so you actually feel like you're making progress. A, you're thinning the herd of the numbers. And on top of that, you're also maybe helping these planets from being pillaged. Maybe you're actually showing the revolution. Because as it is right now, there's no real good reason for why we're just randomly initiating combat. Are we wanting the treasure? Are we trying to thin the herd? And if that's the case, should we start like a reputation system where every time you fight a faction, you can see their bar go down on how much of them is like left within that nebula, or left in general? You know, you can kind of, or maybe it should be like an anger bar. The more you fight them, the more their anger towards you and your reputation builds up against them. Should we see something like that? And then after hitting like certain tiers, as that bar builds up, maybe a cutscene of like people celebrating as they see a revolution, or a cutscene of seeing that faction getting angry at us and saying, okay, these guys, they're a #1 threat. Now we need to take these guys down. Or maybe just a dialogue scene saying, congratulations, you've thinned the herd this much. Here's a reward for it. I don't know. Just give us a reason for what we're doing, a sense of progression. On top of this, what's the reason for level 2 missions? Would it be better to have some planets only open up at level 2, like we discussed earlier? Do we need an in-game reason why we go back to planets? Are defenses across the galaxy just increasing as they realize we're a threat? Do we need a notification on screen even for that? So that's kind of one of the main things when it comes to why are we doing what we're doing. Next is a lot of quality of life changes that I think we need to see. For one, Bulgato is still not defined very well as a tank. Does he evolve into a better form? Is he just starting bad and then maybe his evolution gives him some better traits? I don't know. Does he just need a buff? He needs some help. There's just not really much reason to use him, if I'm being honest. And he as a tank, he just doesn't seem to work well as a tank. He's just kind of... Jaws as well needs some assistance. It seems like every attack just shreds his armor. Every attack just shreds it. So maybe we just don't earn as much armor from every attack that he does, so we can like slowly build up that armor. So it makes sense why his armor's going away so fast. Because as it is right now, his risk and reward is not very balanced. We need to work on that little risk and reward system a little bit more. Maybe a higher risk, but higher reward. Because right now the risk seems to just outweigh the reward of the character himself. For more quality of life changes, I think we need to keep the factions that you're fighting inside the character selection screen. It would be a lot easier to distinguish which waifus I usually need to bring when it comes to fighting factions. Like Killia, for example, really good against the fuckbots in space. I would recommend using her. Not very good against the fuckbots in ground combat. In fact, I don't recommend using her because the explosive people. I would like to see that within the character selection screen. I think that would be a good quality of life change there. Health packs are dropped no matter how much health you lose, a little or a lot. Seems kind of weird. On top of that, I'm not really sure if it's the damage you take dictates your rating, or picking up that health pack is what dictates your rating. I'm assuming it's just the damage you take. But also, I don't think if I lose like a pip of health, that I need a health pack to be dropped. I would say maybe if I get to like 50% health, we should consider dropping a health pack at that point in time. But like even losing like 1% of your health drops a health pack. I firmly believe we need either damaged ships from shooting them or different sound effects hitting the ships as they get closer to death. This is for space combat. It honestly feels like a lot of the bigger ships, you'll be shooting them in like a repetitive mode. They'll be like the last ship remaining. And you're sitting there and you're shooting and you're shooting and you're shooting. And there's just this huge ass bullet sponge. And like, if you guys don't have time to add more damage models or showing more damage specifically where you're shooting the ship at least have a different sound effect when the bullets hit the ship to indicate that, oh, it's getting lower on health. I feel like this is a good sense of maybe satisfaction for the player because they know they're making progress, and sometimes it's more satisfying just to hear the sound effects of, oh, okay, I can tell it's a little bit lower, a different sound effect plays. And also, it's also a good way to distract people from the fact that, they're shooting a bullet sponge, because there are some bullet sponges out there, hands down. Fun fact, there was a planet where I was spawning on top of an enemy, and I had to do this multiple times because the first time that I spawned on top of the enemy and I killed it, it crashed the game. So what I ended up doing was I went back to that planet after the game crashed, did the same thing, landed on the same spot, and actually spawned on top of the same enemy. Again, if you stand on top of their spawn point, it instantly kills them. It's fantastic. However, Both times I did that, the game crashed. One thing I noticed is that Mantics seem to get new passive seemingly at about level 15, but the lab doesn't even acknowledge the fact that they have a new passive ability. It was something I kind of just noticed during gameplay, that the Mantics just started acting differently, and then you can click on them and see, oh, they have a new ability now. So we definitely need either A, it would be nice to actually show like level up every time they like get a kill, or to actually show that they're leveling up. Something that shows that they're leveling up. And on top of that, maybe some form of acknowledgement that, oh, they hit level 15, boom, they got a new passive ability. I would put something like that in the end screen. So, you know, you show the waifu and the level up thing, and afterwards maybe you can do some Mantic statistics. You know, this is how much they leveled up, how many kills they got, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this one leveled up and got a new ability. Oh! Killy in space combat. So this is more of like a recommendation for Killy. I don't know if she's going to get some sort of upgrade that's going to make her feel better, but she's definitely getting into a more weaker territory, and it's getting a lot harder to use her. So again, maybe it's just because she's one of the early on characters and she's supposed to earn upgrades to stay on par with the more waifus you unlock later in the game. Maybe the more that the pellets hit, the more that her gun recharges. I think it'd be a cool mechanic. You know, it's a bit more player focused. It adds more to the game loop for the player specifically. It makes things feel a little less linear. You know, there's more player choice inside of there. That's something that this game desperately needs and desperately suffers from, is this game needs more player choice when it comes to the gameplay aspect of it specifically. So like, again, what if when I'm doing her shotgun blast, if more of her pellets hit, maybe the more her thing recharges, which means more shotgun energy to use, right? It's a feedback loop. It keeps feeding back into it. Killy's really powerful in the beginning of the game, but gets harder to use as the game progresses. Although this makes perfect sense in the context of character ranking up, we don't currently have access to those upgrades. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Waifus. I think waifus need a passive ability in space combat, some form of an upgrade, or add a metagame to each space combat fight. And what I mean by this one specifically is like either add a new passive ability for a waifu so that each one not only has their weapon but also has a different thing to contribute to the Phoenix ship as you're using it. I was talking about like adding an item earlier that you can slot in, which is cool. You know, you can mix and match. I'm using this waifu, I'm using this item, right? You could do that, or you can add some passive abilities for each waifu. You know, maybe like when you have Killy, then the ship is maybe a bit more faster, a bit more agile. Maybe it can, when you use your thrust, it actually breaks the asteroids when you dash into them. That'd be kind of cool. By the way, I think some passives for the waifus would be a cool element to add as well. Maybe leveling up the waifus would unlock these abilities. Who knows? Who knows? But another thing I was thinking about, it was a form of meta progression inside of each space combat as well. Can we get like a super or an ultimate ability? You know, maybe it's a bar that builds up passively, and maybe the more damage you do or the less damage you take, the faster it builds up. And so you can have like an ultimate ability you can use with your ship. Would it be the same ultimate ability? Would there be multiple ultimate abilities? Would it be paired to each waifu has this ultimate for the ship? Or maybe, again, you can bring an ultimate and build that into your Phoenix, and so you can mix and match which waifus you're going to be using with the ultimate. You see what I'm saying here? Adding more kind of like to the sandbox of the game to really add more player choice to it. Could we add like an ultimate ability, and then I'm choosing this waifu, and I'm choosing this package or this item to go with the ship so it acts in this way. And now you're using 3 separate things inside of space combat, making each encounter feel different and more unique. And that's not even talking about what they could have for space combat when it comes to adding more friendly or enemy hazards, maybe even more neutral hazards. Add just random exploding barrels that you can't touch, like a minefield, right? So it's bad for both the enemy and the friendlies. Another thing I was confused about was after the Chloe story mission, when the general is sent out, maybe at that point in time, the planets should have Chloe to fight us. Because beforehand, it doesn't really make sense that we're fighting Chloe once we just enter the system. Because you could do like all the side missions before even starting the main mission. Which kind of doesn't really make that much sense in the grand scheme of things. So like, should we not have Chloe being able to be fought until like after we piss off the Chloe and they're actually actively trying to come after us? Again, that feeds into the why. Why are we being attacked and all that good stuff. Also, a random side note before I forget about this. One thing I was struggling with when it came to doing the story, you get locked. You get locked into the story for a while. they do this thing where once you go to free Elaisha, they don't warn you that you're going to be doing like 5 missions in a row and you don't have a choice to get away from it. And you'll do a mission and it'll send you back to the Mary Celeste like, okay, I'm going to go choose a mission now. And then you click on the planet and it feeds you back to the next mission. I think either A, before starting the Elaisha mission, it should warn you that you're going to be doing a few missions in a row. B, inside the Mary Celeste, instead of like showing the planet, it should show or say like, start next mission. So you're aware, oh, we're just gonna be starting another mission instead of being able to travel. There needs to be some sort of indicator of get ready, you're gonna be here a while. All right, so that's kind of my thoughts on the Subverse update. The 3 things that really need improved, that if there's anything to take out of this video, anything to really take out of this video, the 3 things to improve. Why are we doing what we're doing? Number 2, quality over quantity. It is sometimes necessary to cut the fat or cut your darlings, as my one of my teachers would say when it came to like video editing, that sort of stuff. You gotta cut the fat sometimes. And I feel like we should find ways to add more quality gameplay, or at least again player choice. That way, the players are extending your playtime. That way it's less load on the devs to create more playtime. Maybe you don't need to make more missions, but make each mission more dynamic. Which is my 3rd point, diversify the content. Let's find ways to add different stuff to do. And again, that doesn't always mean add more, add more, add more. I think the best way to do it here is to focus on that quality. Focus on what the player is going to be doing here instead of just adding as much content as possible. I know you guys have a lot of plans to work on, and I think honestly it would be best if instead of having 3 tiers per planet, we would lower that amount so that you guys don't have to focus on that, and you can only bring, or you should only bring what you think is necessary for each planet. That way things don't get repetitive, and I feel like it would easily free up the workload for the dev team because they're not so focused on just making 3 tiers for every single planet. Granted, some of those are events, but let's be real here. Those events need some sort of help. They're not that great. So that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. That is my thoughts on it. At the end of the day, it's more Subverse is what it is. I am a little worried about the future, I guess, because the game's not bad. It has a rocky foundation, which gives me some concerns. So I feel like we need to do something to adjust the current direction that the gameplay is going in. And I don't think the answer is just more. I think it's just, let's find a way to add more to the sandbox loop. The 30 seconds of gameplay. The 30 seconds of gameplay you take and you extend that for the entire duration of the game. So how can we add more to the 30 seconds of gameplay and diversify that? That's the part we need to look into, and that'll add so much more replay value to the game alone, or just more enjoyment regardless of how much stuff you got to play. Because as it is right now, the game gets super repetitive. I know there's more story coming, there's more missions coming, and they showed a few more layouts coming in the future updates, and trust me, I'm going to have more videos covering all those updates I missed. But I'm a little concerned about that stuff right now. I'm not as heightened or excited about it, because I'm like, all right, guys, we need to find a way to make the current form of gameplay a bit more interesting, because I don't see this working for 5 Nebulas. So that's my thoughts. You guys let me know down below what you guys are thinking so far. Subverse is still a lot of fun. I still recommend giving it a pickup if you haven't already. I know a lot of countries out there still having a hard time playing the game. They're working hard to get it to happen, okay? Side note, get yourself a buttress pillow, 10% off at checkout using code Halfpint when you go to buttresspillow.com. Get it as a good Christmas gift. It'll arrive before Christmas. Perfect gift to give to somebody or yourself. Treat yourself a little bit going on there. And they also have a 3rd butt model coming out, somehow bigger than that one. You can fund that one on Kickstarter. I'll leave that link down below just in case you're curious, just to even take a look at it. If you buy it on Kickstarter, you can actually get a cheaper price on the pillow before it officially comes out. So if you want that pillow and get a cheaper price, you can. Or if you want to support a content creator like moi, be sure to use code Halfpint at checkout for any sort of purchase at Buttress Pillow. Even a calendar will help me out as well. So thank you all for watching a long time, no hard time. I'll see you guys next time.